Hello, everyone. We're going to begin. Hello, designers and guests. Welcome to Fall 2024 Design Forum with Department of Design at Loyola University, New Orleans. Whoop, whoop. We have an exciting evening planned. Before I introduce our guest, Nancy Bernardo, I have a few announcements. We have two closings tomorrow. One is our exhibition critique gallery called Double Space. We have the closing of the Creative Music and Media High School Summer Experience. I would like the students, please, to attend. They want to talk to you. This gallery is located in Monroe Building, 4th floor, and it'll be from 4 to 6 p.m. We also have the closing of the faculty show in our Professional Design Gallery in Monroe Library, 4th floor, tomorrow from 5 to 7 p.m. Both events will have refreshments. All are welcome to join. Lastly, reminder to all students that there will be a QR code at the end of every design forum used for your attendance. Please make sure you sign into the one at the end of this lecture. Okay, so excited to have Nancy Bernardo visiting us today. We invited her to participate in our past and present faculty show that is currently up in the DeBall Gallery. This summer, I called her to see if she would like to visit us for the closing exhibition, and she immediately agreed to visit and speak at our design forum. Lucky us. She worked at Loyola from 2008 to 2013. I'm sure that there are several alumni here in the audience. She was a beloved faculty who taught students how to experiment with type and form. She's now teaching at University of Rochester and makes beautiful experimental work that she plans to share with you tonight. Please help me welcome Nancy Bernardo.
Thank you. You can hear me okay? Yeah, cool. Thank you. Thank you, Daniela, for inviting me, and thank you all. And I've met some of you already. I was in your classes, so thanks for showing up for this. Okay, so I wanted to talk about process and like what happens, if you try things, that sort of thing. So I'll just go through a lot of my work, and I'll probably be a little all over the place, but it'll be fun, I think, hopefully. Okay, so what happens if? This is what I named my talk, because it's something that I notice that I say to myself when I'm working. I'll do something and I'm like, well, what happens if I move this? Or what happens if I move that? Or what happens if I delete this? Or what happens if I make it bigger? Or what happens if I just throw it away? But 2 years ago, I did get stuck with my work. And this was kind of like the last biggest project I did, which was a book design for The Awakening, which is a book that was written back in 1899, and it actually takes place in New Orleans, and I did an online residency with collage artists. So I ended up designing the cover of the book using pieces of collage from all the artists in the residency, and then I also laid out the inside, the interior. And Collage Institute, they're located here in New Orleans in the Bywater, they are selling this book too. So if you ever get a chance to go down there, they're on top of the Healing Arts, like they're the second floor of the Healing Arts building. So they do a lot of cool stuff. So I work with them a lot. So this was the last big project, and I love designing books. I did a lot of that, but I started feeling like something was missing. I wasn't really that into it. I mean, I was into it, but it just felt like, I don't know, it wasn't doing it for me as much. And then I started working on redoing my website. I hired a student and interned with her, and so this is what we came up with. And I was lucky because I used ReadyMag, which is a website, and you can just play around with a lot of stuff, and I wanted to make it really interactive. And so she really learned that back end, and then she taught me. She gave me tutorials, and then it's really easy to work with. But what I noticed about this, I almost didn't really care about my work. Like on there, I liked this. Like I liked that. Like I came up with this idea, and then we started playing around. And every time I would talk to her, like on our Zoom calls, she's like, "Are you playing with that collage again?" I was like, "I am." I couldn't stop it, and I loved it because it was just kind of goofy. And I realized that's like my favorite. That was my favorite part of my website, was this. And so I started thinking like, all right, I need to pay attention to this, and kind of focus on that. So, which made me ponder, right? And so I started thinking like, how can I do more of that sort of work? Like, what do I need to do? So I'd been listening to podcasts, as I like to do, and about creativity, and I tried, and I also failed trying to read the book Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. I can't get through that book for some reason. But one podcast in particular talked about doing something and just focusing on that one small task, and that's sometimes one way of getting into it. And I realized, yeah, whenever I work on things, I think as a designer, you're always thinking about a couple other things along the way. And I noticed I was really in that state more than just focusing. So I started thinking about flow. So flow state is a positive mental state experienced when you're completely absorbed, focused, and involved in an activity. Time passes without you noticing, and you're free from distraction, boredom, and self-consciousness. Have you had that feeling of flow before? So you know what I'm talking. You're just like, yay! It's like a buzz you kind of feel. So I began using Shuffles, which is the app I'm going to show you, and I downloaded that. And I started using that because I was like, wait, this is one way that maybe I can start doing something a little goofier and a little fun. And I started writing down statements that I was thinking to myself, or that I, remembered along the way, or kind of different sentiments. And I was like, I kind of want to do this. And you can make these, and you can make them quickly. Like I was making some in bed. Like at 11 p.m., I'm just like on my phone making little shuffles. So it became like an extension of myself or my thoughts and some things I was thinking about, and weird sayings. So I got the morbs, just means I'm depressed, which I thought was a cool thing. But then it became a little outlet. So, and I was able to use that, and I had a friend, I'm gonna actually back up here for a sec. I had a friend contact me about this one because I posted this one on Instagram. And this was one of my first ones, earlier ones. And for some reason I was like, I don't know, I like when I, go to Instagram, sometimes I see something where someone wrote something like, whether it's a funny meme or just, your professor, Daniela Marks, also does, a design piece a day, image making a day, and it always has like a word, right? So I really like those. And I started thinking like for that particular year, I'm like, it's gonna be okay. And I had a friend contact me and he was like, I saw that last night and it was the perfect timing because I was going through like, I was having a really hard day. And I was like, oh, that just made me, it was one person. But I was like, that's the best. So I was really excited about that. And I started thinking about like, how can I, connect maybe to my audience, or how can I connect to other people? And that started feeling really important. And sometimes it was like the goofier, the better. Then I started thinking about like statements that are out there in the world, like live, laugh, love, in ways I could like play around with that. And then, I started thinking about other topics. I don't really do a lot of political stuff, but some of the topics that came up for me in my own work is like body image issues, and sometimes environmental issues. So I don't have a whole lot of, I would say, real overt political work, but I feel like any work always has some sort of politics to it anyway, because it's always like underlying. So I wanted to also find images of people who weren't necessarily classically beautiful. And I have cabinet cards, which are these old Victorian cards of women. But I started trying to look for ones that were women who were maybe heavier, or maybe they had like I found some bearded ladies from like the carnival. I found women who had huge hair. That was the big hair, don't care. There was a whole series of those, and I can't remember what they were called. I was trying to look them up again, so I'll have to find that name. But like stuff like this, and I was just like, I want to use those images. Those are the images that kind of make me more interested, and I think they look more interesting, and maybe they'll speak to people, right? And a lot of the imagery I started using in this is just my own stuff. Some of it I found through Shuffles, and some of it I just, use or take photographs of, and it's just some of my own work. So this would be like, these last two are probably the most overt political, so environmental issues. And then this one was about the Israel-Palestinian conflict. So in between this though, I was working with a student as an advisor, and I was reminded of an installation that I saw when I was over in Germany, where they played with CMY colors and then used RGB filters over it to kind of show like different patterns and what was kind of underneath. And so I started doing that, and I wanted to test it out. So I actually started printing some of these out in blue, fluorescent pink, and yellow on the Riso printer, and then I played with a changing RGB light bulb. So this is just like a test run of that. On this one, move forward. And then in between all that, see, I seem to be doing like a lot of things in between doing one thing. but I still got into the flow state somehow. In between that, in January, I began to use a sketchbook, and it's up here on the table. I can show it to you later. That was given to me as a friend, and I always had treated sketchbooks as being very precious, in the sense of I felt like if I didn't do something that was really substantial or meaningful or smart, it wasn't good enough, right? So I started using this sketchbook, and I just started kind of messing around with it, and I was thinking like, what if the sketchbook could be more of a process book for me and more of an exploration of materials? Because I also realized I was on the computer a lot again, and I wasn't really using my hands as much. So I started playing around. So I was thinking like, what if it was something where pages could be worked, right, and reworked? So some of the pages in there have been reworked like 3 or 4 times. Like I've absolutely used acrylic paint markers and just have gone over the page and then just started over. And I was like, oh, I never thought about it. I know it's like so simple, but it's weird when, you tell it to yourself finally and you get it. You're like, wow, that's really cool. And I realized I could also start making a mark on one page and flip back and forth. And so the sketchbook became like my little flow state. It was like the first thing I had done in a really long time that made me really enjoy making again, and just that whole idea of discovery. And then the pages were really inspired by just kind of randomness. Again, same thing as my shuffles. It might have been like a word or a color or just an image I came across that I thought was kind of cool. This was actually, I did this in Scotland. I went to Scotland in March, and my husband did the driving, and it was terrifying because it's on the other side of the road, and the roads in Scotland are really narrow, but they also are marked with interesting marks that look a little bit like that tape. And what that meant was, I finally figured out, was like whenever you came to a light was coming up, a traffic light. But anyway, and we also were looking for elk, and every time I would always see elk, and my husband's like, I didn't see it again. Like he kept missing it. So that was my little ode to Scotland and my husband. And then again, amongst all this as well, because I'm making these images, but I'm like, they're all collage-y. I kind of want to do some printmaking. So I started getting into jelly print making, which are like these jelly pieces, and I've got one down there. I'll show that to you too. So I started doing jelly prints, and they're basically like image transfer prints. So you can take an image and you can, like, either from something you've printed up, or it could be from a magazine. You ink your plate, put the print on top, and it's got to be toner based, and you pull it up and you'll get the impression. So that's what these are. And there were images of the women from those cabinet cards that I had, but I was just trying to test it out. And honestly, pretty much for every one good print, I had 20 horrible ones or more. They started getting a little bit better, and I started playing with some patterns. Again, like what was going on in my sketchbook, I was like, oh, maybe I'll play with those. Like I was playing with stencils. I like circles, I like die cuts. So I kind of started going back and forth between the two processes. And then I'm like, oh, I'll make these and I'll just cut and paste them into my sketchbook, and doing stuff like that. But then I was thinking about also the images I was using. I'm like, why am I using these rando people? Like maybe I should just like start using me, which actually, I don't know if you remember this, Daniela. Daniela had told me this many years ago, I feel like, but maybe it was only a couple, to use myself in some of my work, right? To use my face. So I started doing that, and I started making Victorian selfies. So I self-imposed my, hold on, I don't want that to go yet. I self-imposed myself into these pictures, which is really crazy because you start realizing like how weirdly shaped your head is compared to other people. So I was like, I've got a big head. They've got a really small chin. My chin is huge. Like it was kind of fun. It was enlightening. And then I started doing the same thing with the wreaths. So I printed these, and then I started playing with changing color filters to kind of show like different expressions and different things that might be happening, and it was a ton of fun. Here's another example. So here's another set of random women, and then this is how I redid it. Sorry, this was really funky. I can't reconcile that one still. It's like my face looks weird, so I can't get that one quite right. But the other one, the first and the middle one worked pretty well. And then I made Riso prints again. I haven't done the filter part, so I'm working on that so I can get that done, and then I'll post that one up. And then this summer, I started taking my Riso prints, let me get back here, and spray painting them and using stencils, and again, just kind of reworking those in different ways, and then also cutting those apart and putting them into the sketchbook. And then here's a couple. These are actually up in the Diebold Gallery. So the work that you see up there are just a lot of these sketchbook pages that I've taken and I wanted to enlarge them huge. So I made like a 7-foot by 7-foot kind of collage of these. So again, these are just like playing with lettre set, rub-on letters, patterning, layering, printmaking, markers. These last couple, I use a lot of like stencils and just the rubber roller brayer, stickers, love stickers. Anything from like when I was traveling, rapid transfer tag from my bag, my luggage, and other things like that. So pretty much at this point, this is the last shuffles I made, which was about a month ago. And hold on. And so this quote is actually from The Paper Garden, which is a story about a woman who became an artist at 72. And I started reading that this summer, and it was so influential to me because I'm just in this weird kind of limbo space of like, what am I doing? I'm getting older. What do I want to be? You know, like I like teaching for sure. I like doing graphic design, but I haven't been doing a lot of it, and I haven't been seeking it out, which is kind of unusual. So I'm like, something's going on. I think I need to make a shift. I don't know what that means, but this book has been helpful because it's like this woman at 72 started cutting out botanicals out of paper. Her name was Mary Delaney, and would make these little collages of these beautiful paper flowers. And the quote I have up there is, "You have to sort through the details of the past in order to process what happened and then to move." And that just like hit me. And so I started, thinking about, like what's next, right? So I would say begin to ask yourself, like, what happens if you just try, right? And so I hope you visit me on my Instagram, my website, Make a Collage. I need to put this on my website. If you make a collage, to please post it and like just tag me in it on Instagram. I would love to see what you do. And so that's pretty much like my work of late in a nutshell, a quick little nutshell. We're gonna get going on shuffles, is that cool? Yeah. All right, cool. So this is a QR code that's gonna take you to the Miro board, because once you have made your shuffles, I'd like you to upload. I'll show you how to export, and you can upload it to the Miro board so you can kind of see what everybody's been doing. Is that cool? I can take some questions too right now, because I'm like 5 minutes ahead of what I thought I'd be. Any questions right now? Sure.
As a collager or designer, do you have like I wonder what your desk looks like. Can you just
like this.
Like this?
Yeah, so it looks a lot like this. It looks a lot like this, yeah. So it's totally like just, I probably have a picture somewhere, but it's usually just a lot of stuff is happening on it. There's a lot. I realize I'm very messy. I'm a really messy worker. And it looks like a tornado has pretty much come through when I work. It's never tidy. I've been trying to keep it a little tidier because sometimes it stresses me out when I go up there and then I don't want to work. But it also is kind of cool because right now I have some stop motion stuff because I was doing a little bit of stop motion. So I've got a table that has all stop motion and all these little bugs that have been cut out, and they're like all on the table, which I'm sure they're going to be gone because I have cats. So I'm sure there's like a couple are missing at this point. And then on my other work table where I do this stuff, it's pretty messy. Yeah, it's pretty messy. It's not pretty. But I guess, I don't know. I feel like I've had people come in and they're like, oh, it's so cool to see it because it's like, you're doing work. I'm like, yeah, I guess. But I wanted to show you this too. This is that jelly plate. This is what it looks like. It's like a big gelatinous thingy. And that's what you ink up. And it works really well. And a lot of these, I was getting feedback a little bit with this, right? Did you hear that? Some of these are, I also print on like see-through-y kind of paper. Right, so this is like an image transfer, the jelly plate image transfer from a magazine. Here's some. And then I just scan this stuff in. And then I kind of like will zoom in on certain parts and kind of use that as like a design element. You know, and then this is the book. So this is the actual little sketchbook. And you can kind of see where I started here. This is annoying. There we go. So this is kind of like shows you how I go through it. And then I do a lot of like cutting, die cuts. So I kind of look at it like, oh, how funny. Open it right there. I kind of look at it as like this resource, right? Like maybe I'll be doing something down the line where like this type of image might be really helpful or useful for something I do. Maybe I do another book design. The other thing I also I've been wanting to do but have not pursued, and I think that's kind of telling, is editorial illustration. So I think some of these could become that too. Maybe. We'll see. So, any other questions right now? Yes. Yeah, so some of it is, like, I have a lot of family stuff. Like, my mother is an antique collector, wasn't, you know, like, she used to drag me to antique stores, and I would have to go and, like, I hated it, which is funny, because now that's what I love to do. But when I was younger, I hated it. But I get a lot of stuff from my family, and I get a lot of people know that I like to work with this stuff, so they're like, hey, we've got all these old photos, you want them? The women that I made into Victorian selfies is from an archive in Rochester that I just scanned in their cabinet cards and used those because they're not copyright, they're someone's family. I buy a lot of collage books that you can buy and just cut out stuff. I use a lot of old imagery that's like 80 to 100 years old. So I use a lot of like Victorian ephemera stuff. If I use anything that's new-ish, I try and like make it really different so, you know, there's not any sort of issues. I did a Brad Pitt book, Deconstructing Brad Pitt cover, and I used pieces of his face to make a new cover, and that was my biggest parent. Like, I still have like sometimes nightmares, like, are they gonna arrest me? They're not. I took the images from stills, movie stills, which are allegedly copyright free, but I also cut it apart so much, and also I'm not making any money, so they don't care about me. And I had someone tell me, Nancy, if they come after you, that means you're doing something good, because like it's out there and people see it, so it's not. But yeah, so I use a lot of old copyright free, and there's a lot of like Creative Commons that you can, I use the biodiversity library is a lot of nature imagery. It's on Flickr, and they will show you like what the copyright is on it and how to use it if you can use it, and most of them you can. So, yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
When I look at your website now, I noticed that you have like a really unique style that's it seems very personal, and you seem to be doing what you love. How long did it take you to develop that? And do you have any advice for people who maybe don't really know where they fall or what they want to do?
I think it takes a while, and I think it should. And I don't know that this is necessarily, maybe it'll change some more. It's probably a little bit more here to stay, I guess, just based on my age. I like to pretend I'm a lot younger than I am. But it's probably, you know, kind of like where it's going to stay. But it did take me a while. I won't lie. But I also came to graphic design later, a little later in life. So I wasn't a graphic design undergrad. I was an English major and an art minor. And then I didn't go back to grad school until I was 32. And what happened was my senior year in undergrad, I took my first graphic design class, and it was typography. And I loved it. And the professor in that class said, you should think about graphic design because of your English major, and you seem to have an understanding of type and using letters. And that stuck in my head. And so I went off and did some things, but couldn't really find a job, really know what I wanted to do. And I ended up just taking myself back to school for like a year to learn software and stuff like that. And then I started working as a graphic designer. I'm not saying the jobs were good when I first started at all. Like I made Yellow Page ads. That was my first job. Was making Yellow Page ads, and I learned production and how to bitmap, crazy bitmapping skills. I was good. I pushed it all the way to, but so I had this first job was not good, but and so I just kind of kept making, and then I went back to grad school, and that helped a lot for me. And I went back to grad school because I thought, I'd like to, maybe become a creative director or do something like that, but it ends up that I was a TA as part of my grad school experience, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. I really like working with students. And the people I had advised with that were my mentors there, I went to the Art Institute in Chicago, were doing like their own things on the side. They were kind of picking and choosing. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. So that's how I started. But my graphic design career was like Yellow Page ads, and then I moved on to working for a real estate development company, small company in Chicago, the Chicago area, and that at first was like, oh cool, I like this job. And I was doing like ads and stuff like that, and then I was like, oh my God, I'm part of gentrification. And then that felt weird, so I stopped. And then I worked for a nonprofit. And I really enjoyed that because I did a lot of like annual reports, invitations, brochures, so I got a lot of different like design. And then I started doing my own thing on the side, and a lot of it was invitation design, and I made bank on that in Chicago because people were, it was when invitations were becoming very handmade, it's like the early 2000s, so people were paying money to invest in that. And so that was really nice to do too, because I got a lot of chances to be experimental with that. People were cool about that. And then I did freelance stuff. And then that's when I was like, I think I might want to go back to school. And I applied to grad school. So that's, where it's gone. God, that seemed like a really long answer. I'm sorry. So anyway, okay, we can jump into shuffles. Oh, did you have another question?
If you want to jump in inside.
Yeah. No, we're good.
Can you talk a little bit more about the process of like creating the awakening of
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. So the process for me was, I was thinking about the group, and I was thinking I wanted to, and I did this a lot because I also did the New Orleans Review, some of the covers for the literary magazine when they were doing them in print. And that's always tricky because you're doing something for a lot of authors, not just one author. And so for me with The Awakening, because there were so many collaborators, I really wanted everybody to have a voice in that. So I was taking their collages and kind of cutting apart key elements of their collages and collaging, making a bigger collage or another collage with that. And so that's kind of what I did. And so I was just using like elements. So basically the idea, because this is why I love book cover design, and this is why I love movie title sequences or like Netflix series title sequences, because you're watching it or you're reading it and all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's why they have that on the cover. So I like to like look for like little hidden, like a scavenger hunt. So that's kind of what I did with the Awakening cover. It's all like symbols of that's in the book, yeah. Okay, all right, so if you go ahead and open up shuffles, it'll look like this, hopefully. So you can't, there's only for the iPhone or iPad are the two, you can't do it on your laptop. And I just got into the iPad world. I mean, I had an iPad, but it was very old. And I finally got a new iPad and a pencil. So I feel very special, and I think it's even more fun to use this, but I definitely, all of the ones that are in there, Oh, except for this newest one. This newest one I did on the iPad. All the other ones I did with my hand and squeezing and making things bigger and smaller. All right, ready? And you can follow me. We can follow each other if you'd like. We could support each other. Okay, so you're basically going to start with just clicking on the plus sign. So this gives you your canvas to start. And the choices on the bottom are, this is where you can get your images. So the first choice is you can actually just type in words. Like if you're thinking, I typed in rats before, right? And so then I can like pick that. And sometimes, so now what's happening with iPhones, right? I don't know if you noticed, you're making like immediate stickers. So you could do that, but you don't have to. You could just choose the whole thing. So just tap it again, and then you can just add that to your canvas, right? So that's one way. And then if you want to delete, you just hold it, and then you can just hit delete. So it's a lot of like clicking and dragging, okay? The one next to that at the bottom is a weird algorithm that says, these are for you. We think you'll like these images. I'm not sure why, like this one. Like, oh, it's, oh my God. I do follow the royal family. Maybe that's why. I bet that's why. That's so, what about this? I don't know why I have this one. I mean, I like the Real Housewives, so maybe that's it. Anyway, but you'll see like trending images. So I think like you'll probably see a lot of Taylor Swift. And then you'll just find like different themes, right? This one in the middle, again, similar. It's like for you. I don't know what the difference is. Oh no, the first one is actually like marketing. They're like trying to get you to buy stuff, which is so crazy. And then the second one is other like reading your algorithms and giving you images they think you'll like. When you first signed up, you might have also said like, these are my likes. Did you do any of that? I don't know yeah. So that's what these will be up at the top. Like, oh, you like art? Here's all of the images. Collage art, here's a collage art image. I won't use this, but maybe I will now. Maybe I will. Oops. So that's what that is. And then down here, this is from your Pinterest. So you can actually pull stuff from your Pinterest boards if you're on Pinterest. And then this last one is the one I use the most because it's your own photographs. So if you click on that, and then you can go to your camera roll. Oh, do you notice there's a theme going? There were some shuffles that were going to happen. I haven't gotten there yet because there's quite a few of this guy. Yeah, it's percolating still. I just haven't gotten that far yet. But what happens with these is you have to, I think, have you noticed, like, see, I think on my end, what I have to do on my phone is favorite images. So if there's certain photos that I know I want to use on shuffles, I'll just put make a heart, click the heart to favorite them, and they'll show up in here. You'll also notice that some of your if you have other, Alan and me, if you have cats, I got my cats, because look at that. Look at that crazy cat. Ridiculous. It's a big fluffer cat. Oh, look at this cat. How sad. Aw. She wanted food. So, sorry, I digressed there. Wow, I need to focus. Anyway, hair, because I always am looking for... I know, anyway, so it'll put things into, the panda cam when the panda was born at the zoo. I followed that was during like pandemic. I know, that was my favorite. I always wanted to do stuff with that too. Anyway, so you can make themed things, but I like using this the best, but I usually have to favorite my images. So I can go through here and I could use, here, I'll pull this one out, right?
It's always going to try to highlight.
Yeah, it always automatically does that. Is it doing that on your phones too? Yeah. But then if you want to stop that and you want the entire thing, just tap the screen. Yeah. And then you can tap it again if you want to do a sticker. And then I'm just going to add that right to my canvas. Yay! And then you can like resize. So you can squish it, make it bigger. You can turn it. And again, it's a little harder on the iPhone, but it's weird how like your hands start adapting to this, where you're like, oh, I can do this. Okay, and then this is you can add type in here, and it's a limited type based. You don't get a lot of fonts, unfortunately. But some of them are pretty cool. So, I'm trying to think of a word. I know, that's lame, but design. So if you want to edit anything, you just tap it again, right? So just tap it. And then you can go ahead and I can change. I like this typeface a lot too. Publish. You can change it. You can also play with color. So you can use just the colors that are already there, or you can hit the rainbow and make your own colors. And then this is a border, which just means like, oh God, that's terrible. Sorry about that. So if you wanted to like make a background, like a color block. And then this is animate. So in every layer, you are able to animate whatever you have. So right now, this is like my text animation. So if you just like, you can click around and see what each one does. There's like, it's going like that. It's very subtle. But let's say I wanted to make it more obvious. You just click on that again, right? Click again on the animation, and then you can play with speeds. Let me give you one that makes it look, oh, pivot will be good. So you can play with like how fast it pivots and also, you know, directional. So they all have like a sub menu. You're just gonna have to like keep tapping, and then you can get below it. Okay, hold on, I'm done. Okay, so let's say now I want to animate this image. Same deal, I can hit this animate button at the very end, and then I can go through and animate that as well. You can also play off the pivot point, you know, like if you want to animate it, like, or if you want the anchor for it to like pivot from the top, or maybe I'm like a metronome. What's that? Thank you. That, right? Then the other thing, actually, let me stop that because it's going to make me like feel pukey. Okay. The other thing is you can also play around with shapes. So this is where like that last shuffles I made, I was playing with circles. I brought in one of my Rezo prints, and then I just used the shapes tool, and you can just scroll through and pick a shape. So I was making circles. So you can just go through, right? And you can do that. And then you can have like just that. You can also undo, which is great. Got a little undo. And you can also, if you click and hold, you'll see over here on the right, a panel pops up. So the plus sign is just a duplicate. You can make a duplicate of images. You can lock it in place, especially with some of them that I have a lot of layers. I'll sometimes lock some of them so I don't move stuff around, because let me tell you, there's nothing like getting angry in bed at 11 p.m. trying to make a shuffles. Not good. The lock is, sorry, right there. Oops. There, lock position. And then you can also hide, you know, so similar to your Adobe products. And you can also delete and get rid of things, which would just be a drag. And then you'll notice too on the left, that just shows your different layers. So like if I wanted design to be behind me, I would just select it and then do that. So you can arrange as well. All right, ready for some more magic? it's going to be good. Let me just get this to stop moving. I don't want movement there. Oh, I guess I could do that. Okay. Okay, so now you can animate. So you have those little weird little animations, like the little pivot, or you can animate a little bit more intensely. And to do that, you want to click on this little, it's like a check mark. It's a couple little dots. Oh, I realize, yeah, because you can't really see what I'm clicking on. Sorry. Yeah, let me go back. Yeah, so you see on the right-hand side, the very top option, little dots with the ball, that's the animate. And you'll get a timeline, essentially. Right? So what you can do is click the plus sign, and you can, and then usually what I do is I just go back to the first one, and then maybe I'll move my design off to the side, or off to the top, and then I hit play, and oh my God, that's so cool. That's what happens. It's really not cool, but thank you. And then when you're done, you can just hit that check mark. And if you want to go back in, you can also go back in and you can delete. So you can select like that frame and then hit delete. How are we doing? Is everybody kind of following along? Okay. Then, what am I trying to do? Yeah, let's do this. Oh yeah, let me show you this. This is, you can also play with the timing, right? So right now it's like 2 seconds. You can play with, it just goes up to 5 is the biggest. So you can just tweak that. Did you see where that was? So right below on the right, there's a number. That's your seconds that you can play with the timing. And then right above the number, this is really fun. So if you click on that, you can make your moves like a spring. So for instance, and you just want to be like whichever frame you're choosing is applying that motion to it. Okay, so let me just show you this. One moment, please. And you can rearrange your frames. So if you like click and hold your frames, you can flip them, flip positions. There we go. So I'm going to use a spring. Oh, how fun. So that's your spring. So that's how spring works. Boink. Smooth is just like an easing, like easy ease, easings. Bounce is fun. And then this is also like a layer list, which so the option on the right, the third option is just layering list. So if you want to click on that, that's where you can move layers around as well if you want to do it that way. If like your fingers are like getting in the way or something, it gets a little tricky. And then what else do we have? Yeah, so you can like, you know, from here I could do that and then have it go down. So you can like each frame, you know, just like with your motion class, if you're in motion, it works essentially the same exact way. How's it going? Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Then there is also here on the right this little option in the middle. This is what allows you to give a little bit of like, if you want to make it look like it's a time lapse, or if you want to give some fairy dust to give it a little bit of a fairy feeling, you know, like in the woods, or if you want sparklers, or if you want fireworks. I never use any of the only ones I ever use are, the parallax is kind of cool too, is analog grit. Bit Crush is kind of cool, but you can add these onto it, butterflies, city lights. So you can add that filter. There isn't any like way of editing those filters though. So that's why I think a filter goes a long way. And then, let's say you're done, right? You just hit this arrow at the very top right. And it's going to save. And you'll get this, right? So you can post it publicly if you want. A lot of times, sometimes I do. But at the very top right, that's the important button. That's your export. So if you click on that, here also you get another option of like adding crazy, bizarre filters. Movie time. So funny. I'll use like analog sometimes. And then you can hit download, and it's going to export it. And then it's going to tell you where do you want to export it to. So if you save your video, it's just going to save it into your camera roll. And that's usually what I do. But you could save it to Pinterest. You can mail it to yourself. You could put it on Instagram. So this is where, if you want to post on Instagram, you hit Instagram, and then you choose, do you want it to be a reel, a post, or whatever. And honestly, I'm sure Shuffles doesn't like me for doing this, but a lot of times when I download the Shuffles into my camera roll as a video, I actually will go in and crop it so I get rid of that Shuffles, because you can see it's got a yellow Shuffles in your name. I don't like how that looks. It messes with my art. So I will crop that out. But yeah, so then you can just choose how you want to do it. And that, my friends, is your Shuffles. Yay, that's great. And then, like, if you wanted to work on stuff, and like I started this one, I think that's when I was in Scotland. I must just left it. I just left it, let it go. I never went back to it. But you'll have drafts, and then you have like a private, if you want to keep something private, and then all of your public stuff is listed here too. I'm trying to remember if I forgot anything. I think that's basically like the most basic. Really, it's just playing with it and seeing like how far you can push this little app. So any questions on that? Usually really quick. When I do post to Instagram, I do like put, hashtag Shuffles app. Just to, say like I did it on this. Oh, the other thing is Adobe Express. I don't know if anybody has played with that yet, Adobe Express. It's similar, but I feel like their animation isn't as cool, but I think their imagery is really cool. They've got some nice images, like little pieces of like candy wrappers. I mean, you could do that yourself and scan something in. But, and I think their type is better because it's Adobe. So that's nice, but I have made something in Adobe Express and then I've brought it in to Shuffles. And then you can kind of mess around with that. Like I've made an image in Adobe Express and then I kind of cut it apart. It's a little more complicated. Another thing about my process too, with a lot of my work is like, I like finding technology that's really simple and then just pushing it as far as I can. But sometimes I also will do like some things like the really hard way, but I actually kind of enjoy that. And I know that doesn't make any sense, but I kind of feel like you as designers or artists will just figure out like what works for you. Of course you want to be efficient, so if you're in a job you might want to find easy ways of doing things, but I don't know, sometimes like I just have different ways of doing stuff. I don't know what my point of that was, but Callie, what was your question?
Oh, I was wondering if you can edit them once you post them.
No, once they're posted you can't. Oh no, actually I take that back, you can. You can, Callie. So you can like go in here and then you can remix. If you hit remix, it'll bring everything back to how it was prior. Oh, nice. Typical. So you're in here and then you'll see the third option down on the right says remix. If you click on that, now everything can be remixed. Which is fun, right? That's cool. And then you can see like these are your different layers. Any other questions? Lots of questions. Anything else? No. Yeah, I think that's the crux of it. Yeah. That's hard to say. I kind of think maybe not, but I don't know, right? I really don't, because who knows? Actually, it wouldn't surprise me though if somebody did. I mean, I was using it at first as like almost like a little sketch. Like I'll use it as a sketch, and then maybe I'll like build out, because sometimes I like to build out more deeply in After Effects if I, but it's always like, I always think I have all this time, or like I'm gonna do it. But maybe I will. So I look at them as sketches almost. But because also motion is, I feel like, getting shorter, right? The idea is like, everything's really short now. This might be something. I think that's why Adobe Express came up with theirs, because I think they're probably maybe hoping that you'll use it, right, as that tool, rather than making like maybe an animated GIF in Photoshop or something. Maybe using Adobe Express, but I mean, I like the shuffles too. Yeah, it's really fun. I just think it's. Totally, I think you could use this. So I think it could make it. It hasn't been, like when I've made with all the different ones I've made, I haven't had issues of like, copyright, and I haven't had like glitchy issues either yet. Like nothing's been glitch enough.
What percentage of your stuff is your own?
A lot of it is mine, but some of it is not. Like this one, I took a bunch of things, not a bunch. I took the tape and the cloud from Adobe Express and brought that in. Like I favorited it, and I have a folder of Adobe Express stuff in my thing, and then, but the other stuff is mine, so it's like a Rezo print. And then, those images of the women, though, I found those. I did find those, but they're older and. So
now you're going to open up Miro so we can see what people are.
Yes, I will. What's up?
Did you guys post your stuff at Miro?
Oh, I don't see anything.
How do we get you the Miro?
I have it. Oh, it's not showing because
You're on a different.
but there's nothing here yet because I was totally on a different device. Here we go. Not yet. So if you have something, go ahead and upload it.
There we go.
And then you can post.
There should be some questions for you in there.
Oh, should I read the? Okay. Oh, that's blue. Thank you. All right.
What's your question? Oh, there we go.
In your work, most of them appear to have some form of nature in it. Is there a special reason? Yeah, I like the natural world. I started getting more into that too, especially over COVID. So it's just something that's kind of an interesting like inspiration for me. And I think also because I do a lot of like female-centric kind of imagery as well. I feel like women, organic nature, like I try and like play around with some of like those parallels. Yeah, that would probably be my quick answer. I feel like if I think about that more deeply and be a little bit more smart about it, I can give you a more academic answer. But I hope that's okay. What inspired you to blend vintage imagery with modern imagery? I think basically the fact that I felt like for a long time my stuff looked too vintage and too Victorian, and so like blending the modern in with it helped give it a more contemporary vibe, and also playing off of like, issues like how even though we're in a different period of time, some things don't ever change as well. I think that's kind of interesting, but some of it was just to kind of help give it a little bit more of like a pop culture, contemporary feel vibe. Have you ever taken a job that was way out of your comfort zone in the sense of what you usually do for your art or work? For example, something like a branding for a company. Yes, I have. I totally have. And branding is a really good example because I'm not a big branding person. I don't think I'm very good at it, but I've done it. And it always takes me just a little longer. And I also took on a job like where I designed a website, and I was like, I'm not a designer. But it turned out really well. mean, it worked. Because I figured, I can design. I know how to design. And in a pinch, I have taught web classes when they're, yeah, I know.
But you're working with web people to help you?
Yeah. Yeah, not the coding part, just the design part. And I figured, I'm a designer, I understand how to design for the web. So I've done it. But they definitely don't make me feel real comfortable, and they're not always my favorite things. Always. Yeah, good question. Who or what are your inspirations, and how easy do you find it to be constantly creating different designs? Yeah, that's hard. I think that's why I started the sketchbook, because that helps me kind of branch out and try new things. But also work through, because I feel like there's some stuff in there that I started doing and then I turned away from it, and I'm like, oh, why didn't I just keep going with those? So I need to do that too. But my inspirations are Victorian imagery, ephemera, like the old school die cuts. Typography, Victorian typography is another big influence, inspiration. The Dada period is a big inspiration for me, like the collaging. Raoul Haussmann and Hannah Hoch are two artists. American modernism too, so like the Paul Rand days. Elaine Lustig Cohen, who was Alvin Lustig's wife, her work I always thought was really beautiful. Who else? More contemporary. Martin Vanesky is one of my favorite designers, who's more of a contemporary designer. And Marion Banshees, I like her a lot. But really, like time period wise, stylistically, I like that like early 20th century, very late 19th, early 20th century. Yeah.
So it's like if we can't upload videos to
Miro, can you?
It says you can do a workaround and you can upload a video link.
Oh.
So we can screen grab, at least you can screen grab it. Right?
Hang on. Let's see what happens if I do.
Is that somebody's right there? Don't get something. Rin, is that yours?
How did you start to work with Riso printers and screen printing?
So her upload is right on.
Yay! Oh, I love it. Let me just check something though. I'm trying to see if I can get.
So did you just screen grab it? Okay.
Let's see if we can do some other. I know. I just accepted it. Oh. What if you could eat? You could wait. So Miro doesn't take a video, right? Is that the deal?
Screen grab it for now, at least.
Yeah, I wish they did it as like you could save as like an iMovie. No, that would be the same probably. Shoot. Yeah, screenshot's great. If you want to get a screenshot up there, that would be fun. Could do that. So someone asked, how did you start to work with Riso printers and screen printing? When I first learned of a Riso printer, it was down here from Eric, right? And then I left, and then I tried to get a screen printer or Riso printer at the RIT. And screen printing I learned before I met Daniela, but then Daniela was really into it, and she had all this stuff here, which was awesome. But I really started getting involved in Riso and screen printing in earnest when I got up to Rochester. And then when I moved to University of Rochester, so at RIT, we didn't have, I was fighting really hard to get a Riso printer. We wouldn't get one. And then I went to University of Rochester and they bought me one. I was like, I'll stay here. So now I have a Riso printer. So that's what I've been doing. And the more I use it, the more I learn. I realized I realized how little I knew. And once I had my own to like play with a lot, I was like, oh my God, I've been doing this wrong. So that's been fun. And screen printing, same. Screen printing probably actually did start in grad school for me. I took a screen printing class and really enjoyed doing that. What was the source of inspiration when you decided to include motion to your collages? That's a great question. Really, it wasn't, I don't know if it was major inspiration. I just always loved motion, and I started learning more about motion design here again, Daniela bringing it into the program. And so when I started working with her, I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I really enjoyed it, but I felt like my collages needed to move on some level. I was making these collages, I'm like, oh, they need to move around. So that's kind of what got me into it. And so I just taught myself for the most part. Oh, this is awesome. This is Killer Bella. So this question, is it Isa? So what are some of your favorite works, like artworks or my work or other people's? Oh, my work. Some of my favorite stuff is probably like the most recent, like those Rizzo prints I like a lot, those self-portrait things I'm really, really digging a lot. And I'm liking some of the stuff that's happening in my sketchbook, for sure. Yeah, right now, I think that's my favorite for now. And do you have any tips for those who want to get into collage? What are some platforms you use when putting collage in motion? I use, well, now you can use shuffles, but I use After Effects. That's really the best to do it. So I cut all my collages apart, or just build them in Photoshop and then animate, the different pieces. Tips for collage, I think really are like always making sure you have one thing that you focus on and kind of building around that. Size matters, so making something really contrasting in size helps too, because that helps kind of create a perspective. That was the biggest thing I learned when I started collaging. When things didn't look right, I was like, And it's hard because when you're doing analog collage, which is just cutting stuff out, you have to actually really think doubly, because you have to think about, I need to find a big picture of a hand, right? So you got to go through all this stuff. Digitally, I scan a lot of stuff in and then just can digitally manipulate it, so that's fun too. Oh, I love this. Oh, I love this. I love them all. Oh, fun. Nice work. Is there anything else that I haven't? How do you not repeat the same thing? How do you decide which vintage photos you want to use? Yeah, so I kind of talked about that. Yeah, they're all usually real, so I'll scan stuff in. And again, because photography is the best stuff to reuse because there's no copyright. Photography, I should say, those cabinet cards that are like family photos, those are great to use, and if you find them in a flea market or an antique store, grab them. Old photos, love that stuff. Yeah, I like to use the real stuff rather than like a digital image that I found somewhere else. How do you not repeat the same layouts in your work? Oh man, that's good. I don't know, I feel like I kind of do. Well, I guess trying just to do something a little bit differently, like moving something a little differently or to another position. Sometimes I'll try and do the opposite of what I'll be like, I'm going to do this, and I'm like, no, why don't you try the opposite? But sometimes I don't talk to myself as much as I think I probably should when I do my work. I don't ask myself a lot of questions when I'm doing it. I'm just kind of doing it, and I'd like to stop a little bit and ask myself questions a little bit more, so I have I think you can always speak about your work a little bit more. And as a designer too, it's good. I feel like it's easier to do that as a graphic designer because you're always working for a client. But when you're just working on your own, you just do it, right? But I'm trying to get more about stepping back. Where do you find vintage photos? Yeah, again, what inspired a graphic design style? So my inspiration definitely, I think, would be the Victorian Dada, grunge, punk aesthetic. I love the punk aesthetic as well, like the copy machine, Xerox machine. And then, yeah, just antique stores, or just go through your grandmother's photos and be like, Grandma, can I borrow these? And scan them in. Or if you have a great grandmother alive, that's even better because they're going to be even older. So, or a great aunt, or, I would just ask relatives. That's what I've done a lot of. Although the one thing I realized here, right, I remember coming down here and being like, oh, I can't wait to go to some antique stores. And I came down here 3 years after Katrina, and I was like, oh, people lost so much stuff. That history got lost, which was really sad. I realized you couldn't find, right, as many photographs as you could maybe up north. So that was kind of interesting. But hopefully maybe family members have things. You seem so confident in your work and your style. You're really sweet. Thank you. How long did it take?
Sorry, this is a question I asked you earlier.
Oh, is it? Okay, thank you. But thank you for saying I seem confident. I love it. Has impacted the way you approach style? Do I think my collage, such as the way you dress, the way, yeah, yes. Shay, yes, totally. It is totally, yes, everything. I mean, my tattoos are now collage-y. I've got like all Victorian like letters, you know, yeah, for sure. I think the way I dress, yeah, I'd say. Yeah, I think it becomes a whole thing, right? What's my favorite place to source materials? Yeah, again, old books, photos.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are you a fan of Terry Gilliam?
Oh my gosh, yes, Monty Python, that's definitely like, oh my gosh, yes. Because I love that goofy stuff. It just cracks me up. Yeah, I am. Definitely Monty Python, for sure. Anything else? I don't want to take up all your, because I know it's past time, so. Yeah, I would love to see what you keep doing. If you want to send me things or just post and just tag me. If you post on Instagram, tag me. I'd love to see what you do. And I hope you make some fun stuff. I hope you enjoy it because I think it's a fun little tool to play with. And you have to take motion, right? Is it motion 1 and 2 now that you take here? So, I mean, that's awesome. I feel like motion's such a great field to get into. Yeah, do you have a question? Oh, yeah. Oh, here, I'll put on this, because this is how you can, oh, what the fuck?
What happens if you click the wrong button?
Oh my God. Can you believe that? I can. It's ridiculous. It's stupid.
I'm using PowerPoint.
Oh my, what the fuck? Yeah, that's probably why I'm being punished. There you go. Now you can sign in. Good Lord. I know, there's something about PowerPoint. I'm going to push PowerPoint to the wall. I'm going to make it work. I do use Google Slides as well. I do. I totally use that one. But I don't know why. I don't use Keynote. I never liked Keynote for some reason. But anyway, so thank you so much. So I hope you make some really fun stuff. Yeah, this is fun.